Hi everyone. We adjust that a little bit. There we go. Oh, welcome to a little fireside chat here. It's a little cool. It was a beautiful day, but it's a little cool now, and it's nice to kick the fireplace on in the house here. This my title of this says the greatest question I've ever received, and as you know, I've been doing uploads for 14 months or so on the channel. And yeah, I got an upload. I got a question today or a comment that blew me away. Often we talk about what makes a T girl happy, or how do you find happiness as a transgender girl. And Joyce in Connecticut wrote me today, and she said, "Rosie, my question is simple, and I dare you to try to address it. And is this: why are so many transgender girls so miserable?" And I was like, "Whoa." Wow, I was floored. I had to think about that for a while, and then I started ticking down. I don't know. I don't know if I know a lot that are miserable. I know some that are miserable, but I do know a lot that are less happy than say more happy. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that, at least in my opinion. The chief one being is if you transition when you're young. In other words, if you have the recognition when you're say 14 or 12 or 18 or 21 that there's something different about you, that you felt like you should be female instead of male. Well, I think in a lot of ways, physically, you're going to have a much smoother transition than, say, someone in their 40s and 50s that comes to the same realization. But the trade off is when you are younger, you are going to be tremendously resource constrained. In other words, financially challenged in what you're going to be able to accomplish, coupled with the fact that your chances to make money and make a living are going to be really impaired, at least initially, especially if you choose to dress and come out as your chosen real gender, as opposed to struggling for years and working and trying to set aside the money for transition, which is also fraught with problems, as I'll discuss in a little bit. But that's one of the realities, is that the finances are the things that tends to doom most girls when it comes to transitioning, and it dooms a lot of the younger girls. The hormones are the easy part, but when you talk about things like breast augmentation and facial feminization surgery, if it's needed, and I know a lot of times if you start hormones earlier, you're not going to need the facial feminization surgery. But suppose you want SRS in the United States, and you're not one of the insurance companies, Aetna or Kaiser, that will pay for the SRS. They're not going to pay for the breast augmentation and some others. So you can see some of the challenges. And when you think to yourself, I'm 18, I'm going to live my life as the gender I was meant to be, and you hit the workplace, and bam, you start to hit those prejudices and things, and before you know it, you're kind of spinning your wheels, and transition becomes very, very difficult, and it can become depressing. Agreed? I think we would all agree with that. Contrast that with the gals that are older, like in my particular case, where you knew something wasn't right. And I'll put Missy Jen in this category too, because I know her well. You knew when you were growing up or younger that there was something a little different about the way you felt about things. But because of society and church going and the way you were raised, you tried to sort of push that stuff out of your mind and keep your head right and do the responsible things. And by and large, you end up doing that. You get a job, maybe you get married, and you still have this little voice inside of you that says, there's something not right about this situation here. But you know what? You're such a highly responsible person because you're a full grown up, you worked a job, maybe you have a family, and you think to yourself, there's no way in God's world that I can let them down, just drop everything and just get on the transition train and go forward. So what a lot of the older gals, including myself, intended to do was to dress, to have that escape, to be a cross-dresser, to have that venting at least in the intermediate term, that allowed you to continue a high level of responsibility to those in your life. Now, by the time when I reached my, early 40s and mid 40s, was financially set. All I had to do was just wait for the kids to get old enough to go off to college and finish the final moves and everything. I had the financial wherewithal, to do everything that I needed and wanted to do. And it made all the difference in the world. This is why a lot of times, we get cheated physically and things like that, but financially, girls are able to accomplish their transition journey a lot faster. So you can see that it's like a seesaw, physical on one end and financial on the other. And you rarely see a point where they're in good balance with being young enough to achieve transition quick enough. This is what I believe is at the heart of a lot of the emotional distress that a lot of girls exhibit on sites like Facebook and YouTube. That's number one. Number two is when you transition and you start to do your research and you start to look at YouTube and you start to look at Facebook, we're all like a school of fish or a herd of buffalo, and we all start to get channeled into this very narrow gateway passage. You gotta be this, your breasts have to be this, you have to have you have to look a certain way. Am I gonna be one of the in girls or am I gonna be one of the out girls? There's all kinds of complications. Again, the physicality rises to it as this herd goes into the culling pen where success is either made or lost. It's a very, very brutal process because the people we tend to get the feedback from are our transgender sisters. And a lot of times they're unfortunately the ones that are doing the herding and sweeping into these, corralling the girls and getting them to move a certain way in a certain direction and conform to a certain mold of what it is to be female. But the funny thing is, at the other end of that narrow sort of gate that everybody's trying to get through, the right tits, the right face, the right makeup, the right voice tone, the hourglass sweeps, the road sweeps wide open again because girls suddenly realize that females come in on genetic, females come in all shapes and sizes too, and all pursuits, and not every one of them is beautiful breasted and has great makeup and a beautiful face. I've talked before about the great bell curve of physical attractiveness and things that 10% of the girls are stunning and beautiful, and then the next 15-20% are attractive, and then you have the middle ground, the 30% of attractive, and then you sort of have the unattractive, and then you have the girls that have problems with attractiveness and stuff like that. But the reality is very few girls are on the 10%ers, as I call them, but yet so many of the 90% want to chase that norm of beauty. So what happens, you get dictated to by the 10%. You tend to gravitate to follow the attractive girls, the beauty queens and all that, and then but then what you realize after time, the longer you stay in, they're no happier than you are. Okay? Because they're also have molded themselves to fit that standard of what they think a woman should be. I could raise my voice and take voice training and all that, but I don't choose to. It's one thing I've wanted to keep about myself is my voice. And I don't care if 1,000 people line up 1,000 comments. I just keep doing what I'm doing and keep chooching along because it's the way I choose to be as a female. I'm not going to go into the mold and worry if one of the sisters says, get your teeth fixed up, or do this or do that. I could care less because I have such a strong sense of what the greater world is out there, of what society's like, of the broad sweep of the physicality of women, fat, thin, and that it's allowed me to see the beauty in everybody. I don't care whether you're the biggest girl in the world or the tiniest thing, or you're unattractive or attractive, you're just able to see through a different sort of way that a lot of the transgender community is able to see through, and it makes life a lot happier and a lot more rewarding. Look, I get people that say, gee, how can you stand in your kitchen 400 straight mornings and chooch around and laugh and be happy? Because I feel good about life, because I love myself and I love where I am in my life, and I love the way that I'm integrated into society. I do the things that I feel like doing. If I want to pick up a power saw, I do it. If I want to slap on drywall mud, if I want to drop an engine and change out some piston rings and rebore cylinders, I do it. If I want to play online poker, I want to make moonshine, I do it. And you know what? It's not stuff most girls do, but you know what? I don't care, because I'm happy. I'm doing it and I'm feeling fulfilled. We're like in a blacksmith shop when we're transgendered, right? We come in as guys, you know, at least physically, and we're going to be melted down and recast. But unfortunately, in a lot of the TG community, there's very few molds that are widely accepted, and very few of us can fit those molds of the perfect transgender girl, any more than genetic girls can fit that perfect mold of the perfect genetic girl. Okay, it just doesn't happen. So early on, genetic girls, by the time they're 18, 19, 20, they've lived a lot of years as female. They've already sort of resigned themselves that, hey, they got the A ticket, the B ticket, or the C ticket. And you know what? They adjust their life accordingly, and they put their attention and their drive into things like politics, into making a difference in the community, raising families, doing things apart from just sitting there and comparing themselves with beauty queens and the ideal transgender gal. Well, it's just my take on what it is, and I think it was an outstanding question to be asked, why so many transgender girls are miserable. And the reality in my mind is because they play another person's game. They become as beaten, and the attempts to conform them are as severe as the attempts to get genetic women to use the makeups and to spend a fortune on clothing and accessories, and just it's all part of the game. And what you do when you play that game is you lose your identity, and you, gradually over time, you start to find out that the roots that fed your happiness start to die off, and pretty soon you're like lost, and you don't know how to regain that because you've given up too much of yourself in trying to be what other people expect you to be or want you to be. Be yourself. Do the things in transition and after transition that you enjoyed as a guy. We're a liberated female society today, okay? Enjoy it and be happy, okay? Thanks for watching, everybody. I'd love to hear your comments on and take on it. And have a wonderful evening, and zing, thumbs up are always appreciated by the Rosie Girl. Thanks.